over philodendrons? Am I done with them? No. There's actually several philodendrons that I absolutely love, and so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. Like I said, today I'm going to be sharing with you the philodendrons that I have in my collection that I absolutely love. I actually have 13 here, and they're ones that I wouldn't trade away for the world. I love them so much, and I'm loving watching them grow, and I wouldn't think my collection would be complete without them. So I'm not fully over philodendrons, but I definitely was over all of the ones from that video. And they're all gone now. I don't have them anymore, and it's a breath of fresh air, and I can only focus on these ones, and it's so much better. So yeah, excited to share with you the ones that I'm absolutely loving. Oh, hello Cleo. Before we get into it though, I want to say if you're new here and you don't know me already, hi, my name is Emma and I make houseplanting content all over the internet, so if you want to follow along with my houseplanting journey and maybe learn something along the way, stick around, watch some more of my videos, and subscribe to my channel. If you're not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate you returning. Let's get into this. And I guess Cleo's just gonna sit on my lap. Okay, I got her to leave. I think I'm going to kind of go in order of most common to least common, though yeah, I think that makes the most sense to try and go in that order, but it's not going to be perfectly like linear. It gets a bit muddled around the middle where things are like common in some places and not in the other, and like you might be able to find a small one really easily, but like a big one might be kind of harder. Anyways, the first one I am going to be talking about is my Philodendron micans. So this is a vining philodendron. I think it's technically a Philodendron heteroecium micans, this sort of typical vining kind, and they are known for their really gorgeous dark velvety leaves, and they actually come in a bit more orange, but they are stunning. This is kind of what got me into velvety philodendrons to start with. It is the most common velvety philodendron that you can probably find in most plant stores, and it is such an easy care one. I have this one pulled quite far back from a window in my bedroom, and it seemed to be perfectly fine with that as it was. I have more recently put a grow light over it that only goes on in the evening because I figured these plants might want a little bit more light, and so I've given it to them. But this one's absolutely fine tolerating lower light. Of course it's going to prefer a higher light, but it can do perfectly fine with something lower. I also have mine trailing. As you can see, I like to have several plants in my collection trailing, but I have seen people who've had their philodendrons growing on poles, and you can get some really big leaves and like gorgeous huge micanses when you grow them on a pole. So that is an option if you are looking for a nice big beautiful velvety philodendron that's like growing vertically. Put it on a pole and you can get some really stunning growth out of it. I don't mind if the growth is getting smaller and smaller at the bottom. That doesn't really bother me. I end up just chopping and propping this one and putting it back into the top anyways. So it's kind of like cyclical in its growth, where I just like chop and prop loads and put them back in at the top. And it does absolutely fine. Another really common one that you will see in most plant shops is this one. It's another heteroecium. This is the Brazil though. And I actually have two separate plants in this pot. I have the typical Brazil, which has the very classic like dark green outsides and light green middles. And I also in here have a cream splash, which instead of having more yellow middles, it can have white middles. They can have like tri-colored leaves where they've got that light green in there too. There's like many different, it kind of grows in slightly more varieties with the cream splash because there's just more color options that can get mixed. But I joined the two together because the care is essentially exactly the same. The cream splash might prefer slightly higher light because it does have more variegation in it, but it's not that big of a deal, and I'm really glad I've done this because before I was kind of neglecting my cream splash, and since I've put it in with the Brazil, it is doing phenomenally. And again, I'm letting this one trail. You can totally get it to climb if that's something you'd prefer, and you could get some bigger growth. You can see the like leaves in here at the top, the ones that kind of came from the props, those are quite large leaves, so you can get it to grow bigger leaves if you want it to be growing up something, but it isn't necessary. And like I said, I like this one trailing down. This one's actually sitting very, very close to the micans, so getting similar light, not much during the day, and a little bit of grow light in the evening, but I'm not sure if it's substantial enough to actually be giving it that much extra. So all good. Love this little thing. Fairly reasonably priced to get at Brazil. Cream Splash will be a little bit more expensive because it is slightly more uncommon, and they don't grow quite as fast because they do have, like I said, that more variegation, but absolutely fine to have them in the same pot and growing in the exact same way. I have both of these, and actually I think all of my philodendrons in Monstera and Philodendron soil from Soil Ninja. I've actually taken, I don't have any philodendrons in semi-hydro at the minute. I know they do grow well in semi-hydro. I just stopped basically growing them in semi-hydro, which is fine. So yeah, all of them in some nice Monstera and Philodendron soil, nice and chunky mix. They absolutely love that. Now we're getting into the like slightly more uncommon philodendrons. I don't really have anything in the middle. I feel like this is the closest to the middle of the pack that I can get. But here I have a mixed pot of Philodendron Adabapoense, Adabapoense X Billiti hybrids, and I think an Adabapoense that has slightly more silvery coloring. It's like a Saint something, San Leopoldina. I'll put it on the screen, but they're mixed. I don't know which one is which. I always forget. I think this one might be this more silvery one, but I could be mistaken. I've just decided to put them all in one pot because they do have very similar growth. This is another one that I could grow on a moss pole. I currently am not, but I think, I was debating it when I put them together whether or not I wanted to put them on a moss pole because I think it would definitely benefit from it. You can see these sort of stems would love a bit of support, but at the same time it is growing very, very well without any support, so I'm not too worried about it, and I kind of like the trailing vibe of it a little bit more. Oh, hello again. We're just gonna hang out. But the Adabapoense, they have these like gorgeous long leaves, and they're super like leathery, shiny, and they're very dark as well. The backs of the leaves tend to be like a dark burgundy or purple color, which adds to the darkness of them. I think this is technically my darkest philodendron aside from the velvety ones. But I really like having this one and how it like adds that little bit of darkness to the collection. I do have some where I've like kind of messed up the leaves. I think I have chemical, ow! Cleo, ow, stop. I'm saying I might have chemical burned it or something. I think I was pest treating and I might have scraped it too hard or whatever. I probably could just cut those off and I would never, no one would ever be the wiser. But it happens. It's fairly normal and it's nothing really to worry about. I don't think it's really messing with the aesthetics of the plant. Yo, can you chill, man? Go away. This is probably, of this collection of philodendrons, maybe my least favorite, but I still don't think I would want to get rid of it entirely. I do really like having it in my collection, and I think my collection would be like a little bit less full without it. So I'm planning on keeping it. It's not going anywhere. I don't think. I could change my mind at the end of the summer when it's grown some more, and I could change my mind. But for now, it's staying in my collection and I'm going to continue to enjoy its beautiful dark green leathery leaves. Another leathery one. This is one I've had for actually quite a long time. This is a Philodendron burlemark's variegata, and I actually grew this one from a cutting that I got from Memo back at, I think, the first ever Another Plant swap. Oh my god, it must have been 2022. Oh my goodness, it's been so long. But I grew this one from a cutting, like a single, maybe 1 or 2 leaf cutting, and it has grown in pretty well. I'd say it's a fairly fast growing philodendron, and I think part of why it grows so fast is because it has a really weird growth pattern. So at every single node, it puts out a new growth point and actually starts to grow that growth point. So it kind of grows exponentially and like doubles in size every single time, literally. Like, this is the main one that it was growing, and then it also puts off this other one which has leaves too. So it's one of the weirdest growing philodendrons that I have in my collection. I had never seen this sort of growth in a philodendron before. I was not expecting it. I'm not doing anything that intense with it. It's not getting any grow light at the minute. It's also sitting on my bedroom shelves. I have a lot of my philodendron on my bedroom shelves because they're like fairly easy care plants and I don't need to worry about them. And so I put them on those shelves because they don't need a lot of grow light and they can tolerate being in a little bit less like high care zones. And so this one's not getting any grow light, but it is closer to the window. I'd say maybe like 3 meters away instead of 5 or 6. And so it does get slightly more light there. I just think this is a really cool, weird one. I'm not normally the biggest fan of yellow variegation in plants, but with this one, like these marbled leaves, how can you not love them? And then some of them, like this one's grown in fully yellow. I've got one over here that's mostly the sort of lighter green yellow color. So it just puts out a variety of variegations, and like this one's mostly green. So it is a fun, weird one, and I think it adds a lovely bit of like texture, I guess. Like the leaves themselves aren't textured, they're just like flat leathery, but I think having the variegation in there adds visual texture to the room, and where I have a lot of green plants next to each other, it adds a little bit of pop of brightness and like difference and contrast in that zone, which I really thoroughly enjoy. I have 2 plants in this pot actually. The main one that you're seeing the most of is a Philodendron Florida Ghost, which I absolutely love and adore. And then at the bottom, I have a Philodendron Florida Beauty, which again grows these sort of same shaped leaves, but instead of the minty variegation, it is more marbled sectoral kind of vibes. But I'm mostly going to talk about the Florida Ghost because that is my favorite of these 2. I don't know why, I really love this one. I have previously struggled a lot with the Florida Ghost because when they're small, they can be quite difficult. Once they are a little bit more mature, I got this one as a fairly mature cutting, it is a lot easier for them to grow. But since getting this one, I am obsessed. It was getting fairly high light when it put out these 2 leaves here, which came in almost entirely white, and slowly, I think the variegation is called Polaroid variegation, where it slowly develops and it turns this sort of green mottled color. Since then, I have moved it to a slightly darker place and the variegation isn't quite as intense. I might move it back again because I miss this. I want this variegation on it because, I mean, the plain green leaves are fine. They're not bad, but the whole point of having the Florida Ghost is to have these cool ghosty leaves, and if I'm not getting that, it's like kind of what's the point? I like these leaves. These leaves not so much. But this one I probably could get on a pole as well, and it would probably thank me for it. I don't think I necessarily need to. I don't know if I want to, but I could. I don't know if I necessarily need that in my collection. I really like how it's growing as it is. I just need more of these beautiful, beautiful leaves. This one here is so freaking cute. I love it so much, and it's actually just popped out a new leaf. This is a variegated heartleaf philodendron, or Hederaceum variegata. And it's similar to the Micans and the Brazil in that it just kind of vines down. I think this bit here has reverted. I might need to chop it back and see if I can potentially get it to go variegated again. I'm not sure, but this half, oh, This half is amazing. It's kind of like in vibe, similar to how the Marble Queen Pothos is the variegated version of the Golden Pothos. This is the variegated version of the classic Heartleaf Philodendron, and I am obsessed. This one is a lot more uncommon though than the Marble Queen. I'm not sure why, because it does grow fairly well. This is the new leaf that I have on it, and it's almost like tri-colory, because they do come in a little bit more orange. You can see down here, it's like almost brown. That's how orange it is, but it's slowly fading into the green color. But this one, oh, I am obsessed with this leaf. It is so, so cool, and I know that this one's just going to continue growing really well because Heartleaf Philodendrons on their own are super easy care growers. They grow amazingly, and so I can only imagine that this one is going to grow the same, slightly slower probably because of the variegation in it. It's not getting as much like energy because the variegated parts don't have the chlorophyll needed to make the energy, but I think it will grow up to be a beautiful, beautiful one. I keep this one in my IKEA greenhouse cabinet, the Millsbow, so it's getting grow light maybe like 15 hours a day. Not super duper intense bright grow light, but I think it's enough to help keep this one in a good spot variegation wise. Love this little one. Is definitely a bit more of an uncommon one. These next three that I'm going to talk about are all hybridized philodendrons, which means that they're two normal, like average philodendrons cross-pollinated, and they become a whole new type of philodendron, and they tend to, in my experience, grow a little bit better for me when they have been hybridized. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the Philodendron Splendid. This one is a hybrid between the Melanochrysum and the Varicosum, and it has what I think are the best of both worlds of the two. It's got the kind of more Melanochrysum leaf shape and front, but then the backs of the leaves, when they're coming in, they come in a little bit more red in the back, similar to a Varicosum. I don't understand how this exactly works because I have tried both a Melanochrysum and a Varicosum several times over. I've tried them both so many times, and neither of them do well for me. I have sworn off both of them. I'm not planning on trying either of them again anytime soon, just because they do not grow well for me. But somehow, once they're cross-pollinated in a whole new plant, it grows so much better. It is so much hardier, and I have not had any of the same sort of issues that I had with the other ones where they would grow weird or like not size up or get loads of pests. In the Varicosum's case, I find that they're so incredibly pest prone, whereas I don't think I've ever had pests on this one, knock on wood, because I don't want to have pests on it. But this one in particular is one that you pretty much need to be keeping on a moss pole because it needs that support in order to grow upwards and to size up. So I have about 1 billion little propagations in this. I have grown all of these from propagations. I've never actually bought a proper full Splendid plant myself. I've only grown them from propagations, and I've got so many different ones in here. That's why this probably looks bushier than what you might think a Splendid would look like, because you might have seen like the ones with kind of a single stem and like huge big leaves, which I'm going towards eventually. I would love to get some big beautiful growth on this one, but it takes time, especially when growing for cuttings. You can see I have it just here, and it's not getting the most during the day, probably 5 meters away from my southwest facing windows. It does get bright grow light in the evenings, and I do have it on a moss pole in hopes that I am able to size it up eventually, which I do think it is sizing up. You can see that the leaves are getting a little bit bigger as they are going up the pole. It's already 2 moss poles joined together, and it's rooted into them very, very well. I unfortunately can't show you properly because the bottom of the pole has this thicker, more opaque plastic, but I know they're growing in there. I can tell. These don't come off the pole, so it is rooting in there, and it is doing really well. It's just taking its sweet time. So the next one is actually next to it. This one is a Philodendron Majestic, which is a hybrid between a Soderoy and a Varicosum. So again, Varicosums, which I cannot for the life of me take care of, but put it in with a Soderoy, which I don't think I've actually tried my hand at Soderoys. I don't feel like I need to, because Soderoys have this basically the same sort of variegation in their leaves as the Majestic. And again, I am growing this one from propagations, and so that's why the leaves aren't very big. I'm hoping one day that I can grow it to have those huge, big, beautiful, majestic leaves, because they are phenomenal when they're huge. I mean, I don't think they're ugly when they're small. I think that they're actually quite nice, and I like having this bit of like more silvery blue foliage as opposed to the very green or dark foliage that all of the rest of these have. So having some that are more this sort of silvery blue and like speckled foliage is quite nice. But if I can get it to grow bigger, I will. I probably will have to extend this moss pole very soon, because y'all can see it's at the top. So that's fine. I can do it. This one only has one moss pole in here. I actually also have, I think, a top cut of this where I have propagated it previously that has quite a large leaf on it. I think bigger than this one even. So I can put that one back in the bottom, and I will fairly soon. I'm just waiting for it to grow roots out, and eventually it will go back in. But again, this one is doing very well, and I think rooting into the pole, this one's not as easy to see, even though it does have the clear back. I know it is, but it's like it's not super obvious in there like it can be with some philodendrons. Like when we get to my Glorious, oh my goodness, you can see the roots in the back of that one immediately. So yeah, this one again, same exact lighting conditions as the Splendid before it. They are literally right next to each other. They're getting the exact same light and care. Now here is the big boy. I'm gonna have to put in a whole bunch of B-roll to go with this one because it is so big. It's so hard to show properly. But this here is a Philodendron Glorious, and it is probably one of my most prized philodendrons. I am obsessed with this one. If I didn't have this one, I can't even imagine my collection without it, because I love it so, so much. So the Glorious is another hybrid. It is a combination of a Melanochrysum and a Gloriosum, which again, I had the Melanochrysum before, does not work. I have had a Gloriosum before and it grew fairly well for me, but that one is a crawler and it takes up quite a lot of horizontal space, which I don't have tons of in my home, and so I have decided to pass that on, some of it to the bin because it didn't do very well, but that's okay. But this one, again, is a climber. It gets those Melanochrysum climbing genes into it, and it is doing amazingly. When I got it, it didn't have huge leaves. I think they were all about this size around here. Nothing massive, but not tiny either. But since then, I've had it on a pole. I got it as a single cutting, and now I have 3 different branches in here. I've chopped and propped it several times over, and the top cutting is doing phenomenally. I can't even show you in this frame what the top leaf is doing. It is huge, and it's already at the top of the moss pole, and it's putting out another leaf. And if you're on my Patreon, you will have seen, oh, can I show this? That I have air layered this top node, and I can actually see some roots in there. Oh my goodness, yay. Oh, exciting. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is chopping just before that node, because I can't extend this moss pole again. It's already 2 really, really tall moss poles. I don't have the space for much more of this plant because it does take up a lot of space. It's got huge, beautiful, gigantic leaves. Or should I just add another top one? I don't know. I really don't know. I'm in 2 minds, but I've already air layered the top bit, so I may as well cut it, I think. It'll still keep growing from the top, so maybe I'll put another one on the top anyways. But if I can get that top leaf, which is going to be huge, and put it down the bottom, oh my goodness, that's going to be amazing. Holy cow, I'm actually really, really, really excited for the day that happens. But I cannot tell you enough how much I love this philodendron. It's probably my favorite of this entire bunch. It's easily top 10 of my entire collection of all my plants. This one is in it, and it grows so well. If you can possibly get your hands on a Glorious as a small one, they, as long as you get them on a pole, size up so well. The roots are growing the entire way up, really getting in here. It loves the moss pole, and I tend to keep this one quite moist because most of the roots of this entire plant are living in this pole. Like, the pot I have it in is tiny. You would not think a plant this size would be in that pot, but it's absolutely fine in there, and it's not like putting new roots out the bottom of the holes, so I'm not worried about it, and I'm just gonna continue loving. This is probably the pride and joy of my entire collection. I love it so much. So I think that's all of my hybrids, but I do have some more slightly less common ones as well. Another velvety one that I have that's a bit more sprawly in this case is my Filadand El Choco Red, or Rubra Juvenile, which literally means red when young, because when new leaves come in, look at the back. Look, it's literally a perfect heart-shaped, beautiful red back. I don't think this one is a hybrid. I've seen some places online that it is, but I'm pretty positive it is its own type of philodendron, and so it's not a hybrid, but I really love it. Again, it's the dark velvety leaves, similar in vibe to the Glorious, but definitely much more round than long. I have had a little bit of trouble with this one getting it to grow though. It is, however, putting out a new leaf. It is taking its sweet time, so I think I got this one as a single leaf cutting in December 2022. I think. It was a long time ago, and since then it really only has given me 4 leaves, which is, compared to a lot of my other philodendrons, a very slow grower. And I do have it on a pole, and you'd think it would like that, but I really don't know. I also had this one in semi-hydro for quite a long time, and maybe it didn't like that, so I have switched it back into soil in hopes that that helps, and maybe it could get more nutrients from that. And since then, I have been able to get a new leaf to look like it's coming out, so maybe switching it to soil was the right choice for this one, but I'm really not sure. I'm hoping this growing season I can get it to grow faster, because I have seen other people's El Choco Reds grow really quickly and well, and that's not been my personal experience. I wish it had, because I love this plant. I think it's so cool, and the backs of these leaves are just chef's kiss amazing. So like, I want it to grow really well, but thus far it has not been the best grower in my care. This is actually my newest philodendron. This is a cutting I got from Claire in our mystery plant swap. This is a Philodendron Lobum, I believe it's pronounced. And I just have this one in some sphagnum moss. It is a cutting, and it's actually, rooting very well. I'm pretty sure it might have been a fresh cut when I got it, but it is proper rooting in there since, so it very well might be time to pot this one up. Maybe that's a task for later this week. Actually, I don't have time. I'm going to be in Malvern. But maybe for next week, that can be a task. But this one has, again, some more long, narrow leaves, similar to the Adab in sort of form. And I think this one would probably do well with a pole too. I don't know that much about this one because, like I said, it's fairly new to my collection. I've not had it for long enough to really judge how it grows. I think it's growing fairly well, because I think this is a new leaf since I've had it, and there looks to be another new one on the way. So I think it's doing really well, but I can't really judge it yet, just because I haven't had it for long enough to give loads and loads of information on it. And then last, but certainly not least, by far, is my Philodendron Melanon I, which I have never seen another person have ever. and I haven't seen them be sold anywhere else. Essentially, I was given this plant, like I think in 2020 or something like that, as a Filodendron Fat Boy. Oh my goodness, I didn't even talk about my Fat Boy. Okay, sorry, we're interrupting the Philodendron Melanonii to talk about this. This is a Philodendron Marsham, aka a Philodendron Fat Boy, known for its incredibly thick stems, or like petioles. This is a plant that I wanted for a really long time purely because it's called a Fat Boy. Something about that just like tickles a part of my brain, and I really, really wanted one. And so I was finally able to get my hands on one last year, and I have thoroughly loved it. I do think that this one needs quite a lot of light in order to be happy. I have had it more pulled back in my collection previously and getting grow light just in the evening, like a lot of my other philodendrons, which have been fine. But this one has grown extremely, like, I almost want to say etoliated. I don't know if that's the word for it in philodendron form, but these petioles, one, are way long, and two, aren't fat enough. I want them to look like physical bananas in here. That is my goal, and I don't think that is possible without giving this one a little bit more light. I have since moved this one to my like sort of highlight corner, less than a meter away from my southwest facing window, but that doesn't mean it gets very much light because obviously I live in the UK and it's not great. But since I have moved it there, I mean, it was very, very recent, so I haven't had any new growth yet. I'm hoping that when I do, the growth comes in more fat and less this, because this just looks like a freaking outlier on this plant. It does not look good with this sort of thing. I'm not the biggest fan in general of self-heading philodendrons. You will have seen in the like plants I'm giving away video. A lot of the self-heading ones I was not really feeling. This one and the Melanonii are the only two that I have that I am loving and I'm not planning on getting rid of anytime soon. I'm really hoping I can get this one to start growing properly again, but I'm not holding my breath. We're just gonna cross our fingers instead. Right. Back to this one because this is one of my everything. I recently talked about this one more in my like 10 uncommon easy care plants video because this one is so easy to grow. I have never had an issue with this one. Knock on wood, I don't think I've ever had pests on it. It grows so well. And like I said, it was accidentally given to me as labeled as a Fat Boy because I wanted a Fat Boy. I mean, I loved it and I called it my Fat Boy for a very, very long time until I learned that it wasn't technically a Fat Boy, but I believe a Melanonii instead. And even still, like I said, I've not seen anyone else with this plant. And unfortunately, because it is self-heading, it's not the easiest one to chop and prop. Otherwise I would love to be able to share this one with more people because I think it is, again, one of my favorite philodendrons. Like, I feel like this one's fairly up there with my Glorious in terms of my favorite plants of all time. It just adds such amazing jungle vibes to my home, and I know it is freaking huge. It takes up a whole lot of room, but I, again, cannot imagine my collection without it, and I wouldn't want to because my home would feel so much less like a jungle. This one has gorgeous, big, leathery leaves, which I'm obsessed with, and again, you can see it is starting to flower. It flowered for me last year as well, which is, for philodendrons, fairly uncommon. They're not the easiest flowers and they do take up a lot of energy. I have, since last video, been convinced to leave the flower on because it's already put all of this energy into growing this, so I may as well let it run its course and then die off because then the plant will be able to recoup that energy, I think. That's what someone said, so I'm just gonna leave it because it does look cool. I do like the look of a philodendron flower, even though I can't do the pollinating of it. But yeah, I'm obsessed with this one. I could probably put it in higher light. It is furthest possible distance from my windows as possible, and doing absolutely fine, getting grow lights just in the evening and still putting out quite large growth. I could move it somewhere a little bit brighter. I could probably even give this one a spot that gets full sun indoors. And I'd probably have to adjust it to that after being in the dark corner for so long, but I probably could do that. I don't think I'm going to, because it's got its perfect spot in my home and I'm gonna leave it there. But if I wanted to, I could, maybe in a different home, in a different place, in a different part of my life. That could happen, but not now. For now, it's just gonna stay in my little jungle corner. So that is it. Those are my, I guess, 14. I actually have 14 philodendrons in my collection, and I absolutely love them, and I do not want to get rid of them anytime soon. They're ones that are really staples to my collection and that I don't think I could. I mean, I could definitely live without them technically, but I don't want to live without them. Please don't eat them though, because all philodendrons are toxic. Sorry, Cleo's trying to nibble on my Marsham, which she shouldn't do. Philodendrons are toxic to cats and dogs and humans, so keep them out of reach of pets and stop. I'll have to hold this one. Toxic to pets and kids, so keep them out of reach. Anyways, that is it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe you got some inspiration on some philodendrons to add to your collection. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up down below and leave a comment on your favorite philodendrons down below. I'm curious to see if y'all agree with me. Do you like different ones to me? I like to know people's favorites because I think it's a really interesting topic, so let me know down below and let me know any other houseplanty things you'd like me to talk about in the future, and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to keep growing. Bye!